Welcome, everyone, to this Chalkboard Church. We're going to be looking at 1 Timothy and chapter 4, and starting with verse 1. And then we're going to be moving around to verse 6 through basically 16, I think. So let's get started here. In verse 1, it says, "The Spirit clearly says that in later times some will abandon the faith and follow deceiving spirits and things taught by demons." That's a scary statement. But I think we would say that as time goes on, and maybe for all time, that we see people abandoning faith and altering faith and being deceived by false teaching and those wonderful things that pull people away from the true meaning of the Word and what Jesus teaches. So in light of that, Paul tells Timothy this, is if you point out these things to the brothers and sisters, you will be a good minister of Christ Jesus, nourished on the truths of the faith and of the good teaching that you have followed. Have nothing to do with godless myths or old wives' tales. Rather, train yourself to be godly. I want to focus right there. I want to focus on the train yourself to be godly. If you've had anybody that you just really respect in your life, a godly person in your life, can you think of the things that they do? What is their education? What is their devotion? What is their prayer life look like? How are they? Can you name the things to yourself the way that they have trained themselves to be the person that you respect as a person that is a leader for God? It says, "For physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for all things." So training your body, right, can help you be fit, can help you be healthy, and in many ways is a good thing. But godliness, or serving God, has value for all things. It holds a promise for both the present life and the life to come. I think this is really important that we're linking training yourself to godliness, is that we can actually be train ourselves to be disciplined, to be of service, we can train ourselves to be a leader for the church. These are things that aren't natural to us, but that we actually are training ourselves to do these things, and that the value of that is a value for all things in this life and a life that is to come. So we can train ourselves in those ways. In fact, later on, verse 15, he says, "Be diligent in these matters," right? Give yourself wholly to them. Be diligent in your training for godliness, so that you can become the leader that God has called us to be. That be the person that not only strengthens your own faith, but if he says if you watch your life, right? This is right living. And your doctrine or teaching, if you watch those things closely, if you preserve them, because if you do, you will save both yourself and your hearers. Paul is saying that we actually play a role in the salvation of people's lives by the way we live and by the way we train ourselves in godliness and holiness. We, in fact, play a role in the salvation of others, much in the way as an axe cuts down the tree. It doesn't do it by itself. It's swung by somebody, but we play a role. We are a tool that God is using, and to be an effective tool, we must train ourselves to live rightly and to train ourselves in the ways of Jesus. It's important. So in light of that, have some questions for us to ponder today. What happens when distortions of the truth go unchecked? And I referenced Genesis 3 there in the fall. What happens when truth is distorted and nobody speaks up. Do we believe careful living and right teaching saves people? If yes, how? And if no, why? How can questioning areas of our life strengthen our faith? I think it is important that we as Christians begin to examine our lives in a manner of, if I am going to teach my kids this, if I'm going to teach my community this, if I'm going to teach my church this is the right way, if I believe what the Word says, then I must examine my life continually. Is God challenging me to change something? Is He sculpting me in a new direction? Are there things that I have justified, that I have distorted? Those things, those questions are always the questions of a mature and sanctified heart. So how can questioning those areas strengthen your faith? And lastly, what determines if someone is right to lead in the church? In chapter 3, it talked about the qualifications of a leader. And then chapter 4 talks about the training up of the body to help be a leader that saves people. So what determines if someone is right? Do they have to have everything figured out? At what point is somebody mature enough to do that? I think it's a question that we need to ask, because not only are we called to be leaders, but we're called to find the next generation of leaders, to raise them up and to encourage them, to teach them. So ponder these questions, and I thank you for joining me, and we'll be back with another one next week. God bless.